For over a decade, we have been captivated by the sprawling, complicated, and often chaotic world of the Brown family. We watched as Kody Brown, the patriarch with the flowing hair and the grand vision, attempted to build a modern-day dynasty, a testament to his fundamentalist Mormon faith and the principle of plural marriage. With 4 wives and 18 children, his family was a television empire, a social experiment played out for the entire world to see. But empires, as history teaches us, are destined to fall. And the Brown family empire has not just fallen. It has crumbled into dust, leaving behind a trail of broken hearts, shattered vows, and bitter resentment. 3 wives have walked away, leaving Kody with only his 4th and legal wife, Robyn, on a lonely island of their own making in Flagstaff, Arizona. The dream is dead. The family, as we knew it, is over. This has left fans, critics, and even the family members themselves asking the same haunting question: what comes next for Kody Brown? For a man who defined his entire identity, his entire spiritual worth, by the size and devotion of his plural family, what does the future possibly hold? For months, the answer seemed to be a quiet, resentful, de facto monogamous life with Robyn. But now, whispers are turning into shouts, and sources close to the fractured family are painting a picture of Kody's future that is so shocking, so audacious, that it threatens to ignite a new firestorm of controversy. Kody Brown is not planning on fading into obscurity. He is not planning on accepting defeat. Instead, a surprising and earth-shattering revelation suggests he is planning to do the one thing his former wives would see as the ultimate betrayal. He wants to rebuild. He wants to start again. And he might be actively looking for new sister wives. Today, we are diving deep into the stunning revelation about Kody Brown's future. We'll unpack the evidence, analyze the psychological and spiritual motivations behind this alleged plan, and explore the catastrophic ripple effect it would have on Robyn, the ex-wives, and the children who have already been through so much. Is Kody Brown about to double down on the very principle that destroyed his family? Let's break it all down to truly understand the gravity of Kody's alleged new direction. We must first revisit the rubble of his past. The collapse of the Brown family wasn't a sudden implosion. It was a slow, agonizing demolition that took years. The first and most seismic crack in the foundation was, of course, Christine Brown's departure. For years, viewers saw Christine as the cheerful, bubbly wife, the heart of the family's social gatherings. But beneath the surface, a deep well of unhappiness was filling up. She felt her position in the family hierarchy slipping, especially after Robyn's arrival. The intimacy with Kody had vanished, replaced by a platonic and often tense partnership that left her feeling more like a friend than a wife. The move to Flagstaff, a decision she vehemently opposed, was a major blow, isolating her from her adult children and her support system in Utah. The final, brutal straw was Kody's refusal to travel for their daughter Isabel's major back surgery, a decision he claimed was due to strict COVID protocols but which Christine and her children perceived as a shocking display of favoritism towards Robyn and her household. When Christine finally packed her bags and moved back to Utah, she wasn't just leaving a marriage. She was liberating herself from a system that she felt had rendered her invisible and worthless. Her exit was a declaration of independence that sent shockwaves through the family, proving that leaving was not only possible but could lead to a life of genuine happiness, a concept that seemed to have been long forgotten within the Brown family's walls. Following Christine's courageous exit, the next domino to fall was Janelle. If Christine's departure was emotional and spiritually driven, Janelle's was a pragmatic and logical severing of a partnership that had long since become insolvent. Janelle, always the independent, career-focused wife, had a relationship with Kody built on friendship, mutual respect, and a shared vision for their children's future. However, that foundation eroded over time, worn down by constant financial disputes and Kody's increasing emotional distance. The ongoing saga of Coyote Pass became a focal point for their conflict. Janelle had poured her life savings into the undeveloped plot of land, dreaming of building her forever home there, only to be met with years of inaction and financial arguments, feeling that Kody and Robyn's priorities always came first. The breaking point for Janelle, however, was Kody's escalating conflict with their adult sons, Gabe and Garrison. Kody demanded absolute loyalty and adherence to his strict COVID rules, and when his sons pushed back, he essentially chose his authority over his relationship with them. For Janelle, a fiercely protective mother, this was an unforgivable betrayal. She was forced to choose between her husband and her children, and for her, the choice was obvious. Her departure was less of a dramatic explosion and more of a quiet, resolute walkout, a businesswoman liquidating an asset that no longer provided any returns. And then there was Meri. The end of Kody and Meri's relationship was perhaps the most tragic and drawn-out dissolution of them all. Theirs was a marriage that had been functionally over for the better part of a decade, yet they remained legally and spiritually tethered in a painful limbo. The catfishing scandal of 2015 was a wound from which their relationship never recovered. It exposed the deep loneliness and emotional neglect Meri was experiencing, and for Kody, it was a betrayal he could never forgive. In the years that followed, viewers watched excruciating scenes of Meri desperately trying to win back Kody's affection, only to be met with coldness, indifference, and outright rejection. He publicly stated he would never have a romantic relationship with her again, essentially relegating her to the status of a spiritual roommate. For years, she clung to the hope that a miracle might happen, that the man she married would somehow return. But finally, during a tell-all special, the charade came to an end. It was confirmed in a cold and anticlimactic exchange that Kody did not consider himself married to Meri. Her official departure was a mere formality, the final signature on a death certificate for a marriage that had died long ago. With Meri gone, Kody's transformation was complete. The proud patriarch of 4 was now the bitter husband of 1, left alone with Robyn, railing against the 3 women he blamed for destroying the family he claimed to love, seemingly incapable of any self-reflection. This is the context in which we find Kody today. A man whose life's work has been undone, whose ego has been shattered, and whose entire belief system has been called into question. He is living in a multi-million-dollar home with Robyn and her children, a life that many would envy. But for Kody, it represents failure. He views his current situation not as a peaceful monogamous life, but as a spiritual demotion. It is from this place of profound bitterness and spiritual crisis that the surprising revelation about his future emerges. According to sources who have spoken to various media outlets, and an analysis of Kody's own cryptic statements, he has not given up on the principle of polygamy. In fact, he is reportedly more committed to it than ever. The bombshell theory that is gaining traction is that Kody Brown believes the problem was not with the principle itself, but with the specific women he chose. And his solution, in his mind, is to correct that mistake by seeking new, younger, and perhaps more compliant sister wives to rebuild his celestial kingdom. He allegedly feels it is his spiritual duty and the only way to secure his salvation in the afterlife, a core tenet of his AUB faith. This isn't just a desire, it's being framed as a divine mandate that he feels compelled to follow, regardless of the emotional carnage it might create. Do you understand why Kody would even contemplate such a move? One must delve into the specific theology that has governed his entire adult life. In his brand of fundamentalist Mormonism, a man's exaltation in the afterlife, his ability to become a god of his own world, is directly tied to his practice of plural marriage. The doctrine, as he understands it, often requires a minimum of 3 wives to achieve the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. With Christine, Janelle, and Meri gone, he has fallen short of this crucial requirement. Therefore, in his worldview, his eternal salvation is now in jeopardy. This allows him to frame his desire for new wives not as a selfish, egotistical whim, but as a profound spiritual necessity. He can justify it to himself, and potentially to a new bride, by claiming he is following God's will. He would likely rationalize that his first 3 wives were disloyal, that they failed to live the principle with the correct spirit of obedience and sacrifice. He has repeatedly referred to them as disloyal and has accused them of betraying their covenants. By recasting them as the failures, He absolves himself of any responsibility in the breakdown of his family and positions himself as a righteous man seeking to fulfill his destiny, a victim of circumstance who must now bravely start over to secure his place in heaven. This self-serving narrative is the perfect justification for a man who has consistently demonstrated an inability to accept blame. While this remains largely speculative, proponents of this theory point to a growing body of circumstantial evidence. In several paid cameo videos, Kody has made vague but telling remarks about new beginnings and the importance of staying true to one's core beliefs, no matter the cost. In one particularly analyzed clip, he spoke about how challenges are just tests from God and that his family's story isn't over yet. Furthermore, during the last season's tell-all, his bitterness was laced with a strange sense of defiance. He didn't just mourn the loss of his family. He angrily defended the principle of polygamy itself, arguing that it's a beautiful system when lived correctly. This defense, even in the face of his catastrophic failure, is seen by many as a clue that he has no intention of abandoning it. He is laying the groundwork to argue that the system is perfect, but the people were flawed. There are also unconfirmed rumors from online forums, allegedly from Flagstaff locals, of Kody making inquiries within certain fundamentalist communities, testing the waters for his eligibility as a husband. While these are just rumors, they fit a pattern of behavior for a man who feels his legacy and his eternal soul are on the line. He is a man adrift, and he is desperately looking for a way to reclaim the power and purpose he believes polygamy once gave him. If this revelation proves to be true, the most immediate and devastating impact would undoubtedly be felt by Robyn Brown. The narrative that has surrounded Robyn since her entry into the family is that she strategically maneuvered herself into the position of legal and favorite wife, ultimately desiring a monogamous relationship with Kody all along. Whether this is fair or not, her dream of having Kody all to herself has, in a way, come true. But it has become a monkey's paw situation, a wish granted with a terrible curse. She has the man, but she also has his relentless bitterness, his financial burdens, and the scorn of most of his children and former wives. The introduction of new sister wives would be her worst nightmare realized. It would completely shatter the fragile peace she has and demolish her hard-won status as Kody's one and only true partner. Robyn has always spoken about wanting the sister wife experience, but it was on her terms, with women she already knew. The idea of younger, newer women entering the family, competing for Kody's time, resources, and affection, would be a direct threat to her security. Her entire world would be upended. One can easily imagine the torrent of tears, the passive-aggressive manipulations, and the desperate attempts to talk Kody out of what she would see as a catastrophic mistake. It would be the ultimate betrayal from the man for whom she sacrificed so much. For the ex-wives, Christine, Janelle, and Meri, the news of Kody seeking new wives would likely be met with a complex cocktail of emotions, chief among them being a profound sense of vindication. It would serve as the ultimate confirmation that they made the right decision to leave. For years, they were blamed for the family's dysfunction, with Kody often accusing them of jealousy, insubordination, and a lack of commitment. His decision to simply replace them, like interchangeable parts in a machine, would prove what they likely came to suspect long ago, that they were valued not as individuals, but for the role they played in building his kingdom. It would validate their belief that Kody never learned from his mistakes, that he is incapable of the introspection required to maintain healthy relationships, and that his commitment was always to the principle of polygamy, not to the women themselves. While they would surely feel a sense of relief at having escaped, there would also be a deep sadness and a genuine concern for any new woman who might be naive enough to enter into a marriage with him. They know firsthand the pain and heartache that comes with being one of Kody Brown's wives, and they would see this new chapter not as a new beginning for Kody, but as the start of another tragic cycle of emotional neglect and dysfunction. Perhaps the most vocal and unified opposition to Kody's plan would come from his own children, particularly the older ones who have already severed ties with him. The children of Christine, Janelle, and Meri have watched their mother suffer for years. They have seen the emotional toll that Kody's neglect and favoritism has taken. For them, Kody seeking new wives would be the ultimate slap in the face, a profound insult to their mother's years of sacrifice and devotion. It would be a clear signal that their father has no remorse for the pain he caused and is more concerned with his own ego and spiritual ambitions than with healing his fractured family. We have already seen Paedon, Gwendolyn, Garrison, and Gabriel speak out with unprecedented candor about their father's manipulative and narcissistic behavior. This move would undoubtedly unleash a fresh wave of public condemnation from his own flesh and blood. They would likely view it as Kody attempting to build a brand new family while abandoning the one he already has. The chasm between Kody and his older children, which is already a vast and seemingly unbridgeable canyon, would become a permanent, irreparable fracture, ensuring that the Brown family would never, ever be whole again. From a television production standpoint, Kody Brown courting new wives is a veritable goldmine. The ratings for Sister Wives have surged in recent seasons, driven by the drama of the family's collapse. A new season centered on Kody's quest to rebuild his plural family would be a ratings juggernaut for TLC. The network would face a moral dilemma, but the allure of capturing such a train wreck on camera might be too strong to resist. Imagine the storylines. Kody's awkward and out-of-touch attempts to court women in the 21st century, Robyn's thinly veiled jealousy and attempts to sabotage the process, the ex-wives providing scathing commentary from the sidelines in their own spin-off segments, the adult children publicly pleading with potential new wives to run for the hills. It would be a spectacle of unparalleled dysfunction, raising significant ethical questions about the responsibility of a network in broadcasting what many would consider to be the exploitation of vulnerable women and the continuation of a destructive family cycle. It would force viewers to confront uncomfortable questions about why we are so drawn to this family's pain and whether it is right to continue giving a platform to a man who seems to be causing so much damage to those around him. So, what are the actual chances of this happening? Is this a genuine plan? Or is it merely the fantasy of a desperate man in the throes of a midlife crisis? The arguments against it are strong. The public backlash would be immense. Kody is no longer the charismatic, energetic patriarch he was a decade ago. He is widely viewed as a villain. Finding women willing to marry into this highly public and notoriously dysfunctional family, and to be a sister wife to a resentful Robyn, would be an incredibly difficult task. The pool of potential candidates who are willing to have their lives broadcast on television is infinitesimally small. However, the arguments for it are rooted in Kody's core character. He is a man driven by ego and a rigid adherence to his religious beliefs. He has never been one to bow to public pressure. For him, this might be the only way he can imagine reclaiming his identity and purpose. He may genuinely believe that this is what God is commanding him to do, and that conviction could be powerful enough to override all common sense and logic. The possibility remains very real that Kody Brown is so trapped in his own narrative that he is willing to risk everything he has left to chase the ghost of the family he lost. In the end, Kody Brown stands at a profound crossroads, a turning point that will define the rest of his life and his legacy. He has two paths before him. One path leads to a quiet, monogamous life with Robyn. It is a path that could, with immense effort and humility, lead to healing and reconciliation with his children. It would require him to let go of his ego, accept his failures, and find a new identity outside of being a polygamist patriarch. The other path, the path this new revelation suggests he is choosing, is one of chaos, defiance, and a doubling down on the very ideology that led to his ruin. It is a path to rebuild his kingdom on the ashes of the old one, likely leading to more heartbreak, more fractured relationships, and more public scorn. This surprising revelation, if true, tells us everything we need to know about Kody Brown. It suggests that he is a man who has learned absolutely nothing from the immense pain his family has endured. It paints him as a man irrevocably committed to a self-serving vision, a man willing to sacrifice the well-being of his existing family in a desperate, ego-driven quest for a celestial crown. The Brown family saga, it seems, may be far from over. A new and perhaps even more tragic chapter could be about to begin. In our last segment, we dropped the bombshell revelation that is shaking the Sister Wives universe to its core. the theory that Kody Brown, far from accepting his new monogamous reality, is actively planning to rebuild his fallen plural family by seeking new sister wives. We explored the theological justifications he might use and the catastrophic impact this would have on Robyn, his ex-wives, and his children. But this raises a deeper, more troubling question. It's not just what he might do, but why. Why would a man who has so spectacularly failed at polygamy, a man whose family has been torn apart by the very principle he espouses, choose to run headfirst back into the fire? To answer this, we must move beyond the surface-level drama and conduct a deep psychological dive into the mind of Kody Brown himself. We need to dissect the complex interplay of narcissism, patriarchal programming, and profound denial that could be driving him toward what seems like an act of self-destruction. This isn't just about faith anymore. It's about a man's desperate attempt to reconstruct a shattered ego and reclaim an identity that has been completely obliterated. Today, we are peeling back the layers of Kody Brown's persona. We will analyze the psychological profile of a man who cannot accept failure, explore the practical and logistical nightmare of his alleged quest for new wives, and examine the grim financial realities that might be secretly fueling this entire narrative. Is this a genuine spiritual quest, or is it the ultimate reality TV storyline, manufactured for ratings by a man who has nothing left to lose? Let's get into the mind of the patriarch. At the very heart of Kody Brown's potential decision to seek new wives lies what many viewers and psychological analysts have identified as strong narcissistic tendencies. To be clear, we are not diagnosing him, but rather examining behaviors consistently displayed over 18 seasons of television that align with a narcissistic profile. A core trait of narcissism is an inflated sense of self-importance and a desperate, insatiable need for admiration from others. For 2 decades, Kody's entire world was structured to feed this need. He was the undisputed king of his castle, the central hub around which 4 women and 18 children revolved. Every major decision, every family event, every spiritual moment centered on him. His wives were expected to cater to his emotional needs, support his often erratic visions, and compete for his limited time and affection, a dynamic which constantly reinforced his position of power and desirability. The very structure of his plural family was a monument to his ego. But the departure of Christine, Janelle, and Meri represented a catastrophic narcissistic injury. It wasn't just a divorce. It was a public rejection, a declaration from 3 separate women that he was no longer worthy of their devotion. This is an unbearable wound for a narcissist. His source of narcissistic supply, the admiration and attention he craves, was violently cut off. His response, filled with rage, blame-shifting, and a complete refusal to accept any responsibility, is a classic defense mechanism. He cannot process the idea that he is the problem. It is far easier for his psyche to conclude that the women were flawed, disloyal, and defective. Therefore, seeking new wives is not just about religion. It is a desperate act of psychological self-preservation. It is his way of proving to the world, and more importantly to himself, that he is still the prize. He needs to show everyone that he is still desirable, still powerful, and that other, better women would be lining up for the privilege of joining his family. It is a deeply ego-driven quest to repair his shattered self-image and rebuild the supply chain of adoration that he cannot live without.